Well, a key update on Fluff Bothwell's injury. Jeff Lebby just shared some news that fans will definitely want to hear.
You are Locked On Mississippi State, your daily podcast on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Jaron Spor. I'm a national college football writer at Athlon Sports. Landon is not able to join me today. He had a work event that he had to attend for his other job. So it's just me today, but we still are going to have a fun show. We're going to talk about the SEC power rankings as we hit, this is the midseason. Obviously, Mississippi State already played their 6 games, so it's the midseason for them already. But week 7 marks the midseason for the regular season for all other teams. So we will talk about the power rankings. There's also been a ton of recruiting information out there. A ton of decommits have happened over the past few days. Why is that? Maybe you're wondering why. We'll talk about that a little later. But first, we got to get into some big news with Fluff Bothwell. No press conference this week for Jeff Lebby like he normally does, like a game week press conference, but he did do a little Q&A interviews after practice on Tuesday. And the first question was about the health of the team. I mean, obviously, Albert Reese was out for the last game. Isaac Smith was out for the last game. Neither one of them Lebby talked about, but he did talk about Fluff Bothwell. He said, we got some good news back on Fluff as we move forward. There's not a hard timeline for us right now. All the pictures came back and they were positive, so feel really good about that. We will continue to evaluate it. It will be a day-to-day deal. Really fortunate the images came back the way they did. I mean, that sounds like someone that is saying that obviously he's not going to be out for the season, which that's first and foremost really good. Because that was something that I had mentioned on let's see, it would have been Monday's podcast. I don't like to speculate on injuries and things like that, but anytime you see a cart come out, your immediate reaction is, oh boy, like we just lost this guy for the year. I mean, as soon as a cart comes out, it's usually not a good thing. And so it is great to hear that it wasn't as bad as it possibly could have been, because it looked really, really bad. And also to that point, because that was late in the game and there was a lot of people questioning, why is he in the game? Landon and I talked about that on Monday as well. Why is he even in the game that late? Well, Levy actually talked about that. And so he said, we're trying to finish the right way. You get minimal opportunities to play this game, and we're trying to finish the right way. We're still, as a program, incredibly green and young. As we're sitting here 6 games into year 2, it's still about how we do what we do. Finishing is a huge part of emphasis. It still has it has been. Playing and winning games in the fourth quarter is a real thing in this league. Our guys need to understand how to sustain to get it done. That's a fair point. Again, you run the risk of an injury happening like happened to Fluff, but they are only in year 2 and they are only halfway through, and they did just go 2-10 last year. So they need all the reps and all the game action they can get to get that experience built. So it's a fair response, and it's kind of why on Monday I said I don't mind if you want to leave most of your starters in. Just your really key guys that you're going to need going forward, guys that have played football, a lot of ball, those are the ones I take out. So, Fluff is one I take out. Booth would be one I take out. That's probably Johnny Daniels that needs to be in there, or Seth Davis that needs to be in there. Quarterback's a little different. I understand wanting the quarterback still to be in there just because unless he's been getting killed all game, which Shapen took a lot of hits, so maybe you take him out too. But I understand leaving the quarterback in because a quarterback can make an offense go or not go. And so if you want to get guys experienced in the offense, you probably need to keep him in the game because you never know what can happen. Now I'm just talking broadly. I'm not talking about specifically Mississippi State. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what ends up happening for Fluff, because while And oh, by the way, Gayton is another one that could have probably been um, in the game as well. But when it comes to Fluff, he didn't give a timeline like when he will be back, but it at least sounds like kind of like what um, Landon was saying, which is he was expecting to be a couple weeks, maybe a high ankle sprain. He didn't even reveal what the injury is. Maybe it's a high ankle sprain where you get through the bye week, and maybe he plays the next game, or maybe he sits that game and is back the week after that. And so we'll see what ends up happening. Obviously, they have a deep running back room. Booth has played actually pretty well this year, so we'll see if it's just him carrying the load, if Johnny Daniels, Gayton, if Seth Davis, whoever, kind of adds to that backfield to get more, take some reps away from Booth, so he's not just carrying the whole load. But going back to Lebby, some of the other things he talked about after watching the film, kind of what stood out for them. Uh, he said offensively for us, we couldn't get out of our own way. The negative plays on first and second down, we averaged 3rd and 11 on our third downs, and you got no chance to be able to go win a football game offensively when you put yourself in those positions or situations. That was the most frustrating part, is that we had some things that felt like we were in a great position and we did not execute, and it's all over the tape, and we took turns doing it. And so that was the thing for us as we watched the tape. It was every single position group from the second play of the game. It was every single group offensively. Couldn't say it better myself. I had a lot of A&M fans in my mentions or in our mentions, and they were saying, you guys just don't ever give credit to Texas A&M. Well, first off, two things. This is a Mississippi State podcast. This isn't a Texas A&M podcast. We have Locked On Aggies. Go to Locked On Aggies if you want to hear a breakdown of what Texas A&M did. I mean, I'm just being honest. If you want to know what Texas A&M did, well or not well, go listen to Locked On Aggies podcast. That's what they're there for. That's not us. That's not what we're here for. We're here to break down Mississippi State and talk about what Mississippi State did. Texas A&M played a really good game. They did some really good things. Does that mean that Mississippi State couldn't have still executed? No. Mississippi State did shoot itself in the foot several times with negative plays. And that could have been whiffing on a block. That could have been running the wrong direction. That could be missing a read. That could be, pulling it when you should have gave it, or gave it when you should have pulled it. It could be a bunch of things. Mississippi State made several mistakes that cost Mississippi State. That doesn't take away from what Texas A&M did. Texas A&M did a lot of good things, but Mississippi State cost themselves with a lot of foolish stuff too. Again, we broke that down on Monday. Go back and listen to that, and you can kind of get more of a step-by-step process of all the stuff they messed up on. But we're not here to talk about A&M. We're here to talk about Mississippi State. So first off, if you're a Texas A&M fan who's coming to listen to a Mississippi State podcast after the game has taken place, I don't know what you're doing. Before, I understand you want to hear a breakdown. After, we're not here to talk about A&M. So got to get that out of the way. But yes, Mississippi State, like Lebby said, they just couldn't get out of their own way, and it made their third down and longs, or their third downs really long, and that hurts any team. I don't care how good of an offensive team you are, you're going to struggle. He also talked about the defense. He said the first 8 series of the game, we played winning football, gave us the opportunity to go win, and we didn't finish the way we needed to. Again, the sustaining part of how we need to go finish games is going to be a huge piece of it, really hard and not an excuse. But the reality of for our defense is to be able to go play the way they played the first 8 drives, with being on the field as much as they were on the field. And again, that's us offensively. I'm glad he brought up the offense, because in that, when he was talking about the defense, because the defense did play winning football. We talked about that. That first 8 drives, they were really, really good. They fell off at the end, and I'm glad at the end he brought up it's because of the offense. Now, I wish someone would have asked him, and I don't see it in this breakdown. I wish someone would have asked him about going fast. He was asked this. I had to go all the way back to his time in Oklahoma, and he was asked it at one point at Oklahoma when Oklahoma's defense was still early in the rebuild, wasn't great, and they were getting put on the field a lot. And he kind of just blew it off. But that's a younger offense coordinator. Now he's the head coach. Offense coordinator, I don't expect him to give this a great answer about how they need to balance it, because his job is the offense. His job is not the defense. Now, as a head coach, I want to know if it's different. So I wish someone would have asked him, hey, you mentioned how the defense kind of fell off at the end, and it was the offense's fault for putting them in a lot of bad situations. Did you ever think about slowing down the pace, slowing down so you're not going 3 and out so quick? Because I would have liked to hear his answer on it, because I think that's going to determine a lot about what Jeff Lebby becomes as a head coach. Jeff Lebby can be a really good head coach. He's got to adapt. He cannot be stubborn and stick to, oh, this is what we do. This is what we're doing all the time. I understand you don't want to shift away from what you do too much, but and I think the up tempo offense is really good and has a lot of good positive things about it. But you also have to understand in a game, man, we can't get anything through 3 quarters going offensively, and I can see my defense is wearing out. I've got to change some stuff offensively. I got to slow it down. I've got to let them rest some. I have to do it, or it's going to be a struggle. And so I would have liked to hear his answer on that, but obviously we didn't get that. But all right, coming up next, Locked On has a new set of SEC power rankings. Where does Mississippi State land? We'll talk about it. Well, Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else. That's as of August of 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drive feel like anything, but from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. And most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy to use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. One of the things I loved about Monarch, and I've talked about this many times, is a lot of people, and I was one of them, you don't know all the things you subscribe to. You think you do, but in this world, you have to subscribe to this service and that service and all these different things, and you kind of lose track of them. I went through when I got married to go delete some because she had it, or vice versa. And even after going through deleting some, I still, months after, looked back and said, "Oh, I didn't know I still was subscribed to that." So it's helped me kind of keep everything in line. Also, it let me know that, man, I was spending way too much on food delivery. And when I was single, that was fine. When I'm married, you got to be a little more cautious with it. And so I know a lot of people went to food delivery, especially during the pandemic and since. But yeah, it showed me that I was spending way too much, and I've been able to cut back on that. Now I do it once every couple months. I don't do it. Before, it was like once or twice a week. So cut back on it quite a bit. But don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our buddy Chris Marler, who is the host of the Locked On South Carolina, Locked On Gamecocks, he puts out his weekly power rankings. So through week 6, he has his power rankings out for the SEC. Coming in at number 11, the Mississippi State Bulldogs. I wish I would have looked at week 5 and seen if that was a move up, but I believe it was. I believe we were 12 and then we moved up to 11. So he has Mississippi State 11. He has us ahead of South Carolina, Auburn, Arkansas, Kentucky, and he has Texas all the way down at number 16. His top 10 is Oklahoma at 1, Texas A&M 2, Ole Miss 3, Alabama 4, Missouri 5, Georgia 6, Tennessee 7, Vanderbilt 8, LSU 9, Florida 10, and then obviously Mississippi State at 11. I disagree with the Texas at 16. I think a lot of people are sleeping on them because they lose to Florida, and then they lost obviously to Ohio State. So the two Power Four opponents they've played, they've lost. And we'll get into our upsets, and I'm not fully committed on doing this, but I'm very close to picking Texas to beat Oklahoma on Saturday and kind of re-show how good they are. Because I think talent-wise, they're there. They're just not putting it all together. And we've seen teams that it's taken a while. Last year, Clemson, they struggled early in the year. The talent put it together. They make the college football playoff. But let's get to Mississippi State. I think overall this is a pretty good spot. You could argue they've done more than Florida because my thing is he bumped Florida up 4 spots for beating Texas, but he has Texas as his worst team. So if you have Texas as your worst team, why is Florida getting such a bump that they're getting? So I kind of disagree with Florida being up as high as they are. But on the flip side, I don't know if I'd put South Carolina or even Auburn, and I know Auburn hasn't looked great in its big games either. I don't know if I'd put them over or under Mississippi State. So I think 11's probably right. I think they're in that 11 to 12 range. I would say right now I would take them against Kentucky. I would take them against Arkansas for sure. After that, I think I would take them over Florida. But if the Florida team that showed up against Texas shows up, then it could be a different story. But I think I'd take them over Florida. So right there, that's 3. So yeah, then I'd put them, South Carolina, Auburn kind of in that 11, 12, 13 range of some order, and whatever order you have it in, I wouldn't necessarily argue with. I wouldn't complain if you thought Mississippi State was the best of the group. I wouldn't complain if you thought South Carolina was the best of the group, or even Auburn was the best of the group. I really wouldn't complain too much. Obviously, we have the bye week and we go to Gainesville next week, so we'll find out if they are better in Florida. Now, with that being said, I've talked about this. Just because you beat a team, I don't think that necessarily means you're better than that team. And I know that might sound crazy to think about, but a great example, and I've brought this up, Oklahoma went 6-7 last year. Alabama went 9-4. Oklahoma beat Alabama and beat them pretty handily at home. Oklahoma was not better than Alabama last year. I mean, that's just plain and simple. Um, you know, UCLA just beat Penn State and beat them pretty handily. UCLA's not better than Penn State. So stuff like that. I just don't buy into that. But regardless, they're going to go play next week. And so we'll see what they are. But no, I really can't complain about Mississippi State's spot. Like I said, I'd have them kind of in that 11, 12, 13 range, somewhere in there. And yeah, I can't really complain about it. I think it's a pretty good spot. He has us on the high end of the 3. I can't complain with that. But if someone said, hey, no, they're 13, I can't complain with that either. I think there are still a lot of question marks. You beat Arizona State, which, they've won every game since that loss. So we'll see what Arizona State does the rest of the season. If they can go out and go 9-3, 10-2, then that win looks really good, like we think it does look. Outside of that, there's not really a lot of complaints I have. I think Ole Miss is a little too high just because this is the thing about Ole Miss. I know they played Kentucky, who is the worst team in the SEC, and beat them by 7. I know they played Arkansas, who's the second worst team in the SEC, and beat them by 6, and Arkansas was driving to win that game before fumbling. I know they beat LSU by 5 points, but I also know going into that game, people were starting to wonder how good LSU really is. LSU had 2 wins, or had the win against Clemson that everyone thought was a great win that turned out to be not a great win. And then they haven't scored 25 points against a Power 4 opponent. They hadn't scored against an FBS opponent, I believe. I believe the one time they scored over 24, it was against an FCS team. I know all that. So how good is LSU actually? So that's my thing. I know Kentucky's not good, and I know Arkansas is not good, and they beat both of them by 1 score. So that's why I'm not really sold on Ole Miss, even though I know they're number 4 in the country. I think Alabama I'd put over them. Even Missouri I might even put over them, although I'm not sold on Missouri either. Georgia and Tennessee I think would beat Ole Miss, which Georgia does play Ole Miss this year, so we'll see what happens. But all right, coming up next, we got to talk about several decommitments. 4 of them took place on Monday. Who are they, and why did it happen? We'll talk about it. Well, this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of the football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections, like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. I know a lot of people love it. I know a lot of people that use it. They love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute. Their favorite part is for Prize Picks is they just added stacks. So if they want to ride with a player, they can select their passing yards, rushing yards, touchdowns all in one lineup. It's also fun to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with one click. Also, there's a new feature, the new injury reboot feature. If your player leaves early and doesn't return, won't count against you. Download the Price Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Price Picks. It's good to be right. Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Well, it was decommitment season earlier this week on Monday. 4 players decided to decommit. That was Tamario Johnson, Caleb Triplett, Maurice Jones Jr., and Charles Humphrey. All of them are 3 stars who had committed to the Bulldogs in the summer. Johnson was a guy that I even posted out that it was a tough loss, and I saw some people got upset by that. I really liked him, and Landon and I both talked about him, that we really liked him as a player. We also liked Charles Humphrey as a player. We thought both of them were going to be good. I mean, Humphrey had offers from Ole Miss, Oregon, Cincinnati, Virginia Tech. Tamario Johnson had offers from Texas Tech and Vanderbilt, notably. Triplett, Jackson State, Arkansas State were his biggest ones, so not as much. But yeah, I mean, I think Tamario Johnson had a lot of upside. I think Charles Humphrey had a lot of upside. I know Johnson was ranked as the number 91 safety, Humphrey the 114th ranked tackle. So it wasn't like these were these incredible high prospects. But I will say also Jeff Lebby was asked about it, and he said there's a lot going on from a roster standpoint. He said whether it's the 5-for-5 piece of it, and as we move forward with things coming down the pipe, we got to be ready to go adjust. That's all very fluid, and we're getting closer to that December signing day. And so what he's referring to, for those that don't know, is there's a rule that's about to be passed, or they think is going to be passed, where it's going to be you get 5 years of college. There's no more red shirts. 5 years of college. You get it however you want it. You just get 5 years though, so you don't get it. I believe there are exceptions for injuries. I can't remember for sure off the top of my head, but regardless, you get 5 years. So there's no, hey, we got to play him 4 games so we can save him 4 years. You just get 5 years. There's no red shirting, none of that. So guys can play all the time. And so what he's referring to is because of that, there are some guys on the team right now that they think they would lose if they didn't have that. But with that rule, those players will still be on the roster next year. And because of that, they got to cut back some of their numbers. So they've picked some players. And I'm not going to speculate because I've seen the reports. I've seen people do it. I don't think it's respectful to the kids, but I know there was some speculation that these kids were some that were told like, hey, you need to go elsewhere because we can't keep your commitment. But I don't know if that's true. I'm not reporting that. I don't like talking about that kind of stuff just because you don't know from the kid. I mean, it could have been something else. They could have got a bigger NIL offer. They could have just not felt like home and wanted to go somewhere else. But regardless, going off Lebby's comments, it kind of makes it sound like that, like they're kind of fluid through the roster conversation and things like that. It's going to be interesting what a lot of teams do, because there's going to be some players that they got to cut that have high projections that they think are going to be really good one day, but just can't take the risk because they got to start cutting some players because they got some players that will be there longer. So we'll see about that. We'll see and it's not just Mississippi State. If that rule passed, that happens for all teams. So we'll have to see what happens with a lot of these players. And I think that's going to mean a very wild transfer portal. Because there might be some guys that have that 5th year that they're like, hey, we would rather have this 5-star freshman come in, so you have to go, kind of thing. And so I don't know. I think it's going to be college football's changing, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward. But yeah, that's your major recruiting news. Nothing big. The other one I can think of was the linebacker, um, J.J. Bush. He was a linebacker that was committed to Arkansas, been on many trips to Mississippi State, or had just gone on a trip to Mississippi State. He was projected to go to Mississippi State, and literally that day, I believe it was that day or maybe the next day, committed to Missouri. So he ended up going to Missouri. Isn't going to be a Bulldog. So that's my dog's going wild back there, but yeah, that's gonna do it for this one. It's another 1 second. It's another big moment on Locked On College Football Fans, Locked On and Fire TV to present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. I'm Jaron. Check out my work over at Athlon Sports. Landon should be back joining us tomorrow. But yeah, follow us on social media. We're on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. So follow us there. We post daily videos Monday through Friday. We also will post a pregame and postgame video every Saturday that there's a game. Obviously none this week, but we do that as well. So check that out. And until next time, Hail State.